Thank you all for coming today. It's great to see this many people show up on a really hot, steamy summer day. We'll try to get through as efficiently as possible. The question sections, right? It's going to be as long as it takes to get through those. I'll try to move through everything fairly quickly. So first, why are we here today? What are we doing? So today we're calling this the town hall for the projects that will be supported by the capital fund grant. This also kicked off based upon the VCI vote and the prescriptions. There were some projects for building improvements that were mandated by the VCI prescriptions. We accepted those, we're compelled to do them. We take capital to do that, so we don't naturally have that in the budget. That's too big for endowments and more to support, so we need to do something to raise capital to support those. At the same time, there's a lot of facilities improvements that have been tabled for many years just because we don't have the funding to support them. So there's no better time than now to try and wrap those into the same capital fund. Another part of that is that the VCI prescriptions also spoke to a connection to the community. One of the assets of the church is where we're located, and our existing ties to the community, we want to strengthen those. So even though there's some building improvements that aren't necessarily called out, there are some things that need to be done to be able to support that connection to the community. And so the other part today is not just us telling you about the projects that the trustees have come up with, that the VCI facilities improvement team has come up with, but it's also a chance for you to try to input back to us so that we can help shape what it is that we really try to do with the funds that come in from this fund grant. So a bit about the capital campaign. So you've seen the title, Save, Strong, and Sacred Spaces. I'm not going to read through everybody's name, but you can see there who the team is that's on the capital fund grant. It's a combination of committee chairs and just other folks from the congregation. The goal for the capital fund grant is $500,000. That's just about on par with what our annual budget typically is. We already have some funds coming in. There's actually probably even a little bit more that we could wrap into that number based upon designated funds that are already set aside for the same projects that are also being supported from that. That funding is coming from endowments and memorials, so there's about 1.5 years of what endowment sets aside for building improvements in that number. There's also already been some contributions from members directly towards the capital campaign. And today we're not going to talk about in depth the ways that contributions can be made, but it can take many forms, all the way from cash donations to donations of property, things like jewelry, artwork, anything that has value can be contributed through the capital campaign. There's tax implications, things like that. The Finance Committee is going to speak to those. There's also a few handouts that they have that you can take with you today. Okay, so I want to start with just some information from Community Ministries, just to speak to the connection to the community. Just this last week, I was already talking to Matt again about an additional group that wants to come in and use the facility. So facility use is growing by the community. I've got a couple of notes from the groups that are using the facility that we thought it might make sense to share, just to hear about how it's being used and the value that those groups are getting out of the facility. So this first one is from a group called Stage GR. It's a group of high school kids who are putting on performances in Fellowship Hall. So they use the space on a very frequent basis to do rehearsals. They use the music room to do rehearsals as well. So this is a note from the director. I'm just going to read out one paragraph here. Because of our partnership with Trinity UMC, we've been able to successfully produce 2 full-scale community theater productions. And this was a while ago, so there's been more. We've provided life-changing opportunities to 58 young people from 17 different area schools. We've given over 50 different families the joy of theater. Because of our partnership with Trinity, we've been able to provide a 100% inclusive experience to students from 7 diverse backgrounds: race, age, gender, orientation, socioeconomic. We've helped students build their confidence and learn to challenge themselves. We've helped students break down stereotypes and presuppositions. Because of the experience that Trinity has allowed us to share, we have changed lives. Thank you for your gracious hospitality. We certainly look forward to continuing to strengthening our partnership. Okay, so that's one of them. Another group is the Autism Support of Kent County. So they've used the parlor for a few meetings. They have frequent meetings here. It's a pretty long email, so I'm not going to read through the whole thing. So just a few notes. Not only is Trinity centrally located with great parking, but it's a relaxing and peaceful space that makes the meeting feel so much better. Since moving the support group meetings to Trinity, Autism Support of Kent County has seen a huge increase in attendance, with double the number of parents coming to those meetings. The little things that the staff at Trinity does makes a difference too. The signs make the room easy to find. The custodial staff on site could not be more polite and friendly. Having a wonderful space to meet and support parents is a very important to the work that we do. The meeting at Trinity goes above and beyond what we could have hoped for. And then he also notes, in addition, we're looking to hold another event, and we'd also like to use Trinity for that event as well. And then the final thing that I wanted to highlight, you may have all seen the email that came out about this particular article. So there was an article in West Michigan Community News titled, Trinity United Methodist Initiates Community Partnerships. And it highlights all the different groups, many of, not all, of the different groups that use the building. So I'm just going to list those really quickly. On other days, the Down Syndrome Association, the Late Youth Group, Boy Scouts, youth groups, an after-school program for Congress Elementary School, a postpartum depression support group, Arts in Motion, an autism support group, Grand Rapids Symphonette, and the list goes on. So the building is getting used to help groups within the community, which I think is one of our key tenets. So, real quickly, these are the two groups that are influencing the list of projects that we want to include underneath the capital campaign. If you have questions about any of these projects, you can approach me, approach anybody on this list, and we'll get you an answer to whatever your question is, or absorb your input and try and wrap that into the things that we do. So the format for today. How many folks went to the town halls for VCI? Okay, so the format will be similar, except today you're going to hear a lot more about what it is that we're discussing today. But you'll all have a chance to provide input. There are many projects, probably about 20 to 25, that fall underneath this capital campaign. I've done my best to try and bucket them up into logical groups. So I've broken them down into 4 sections. So I'll cover all the projects that I put into that section, and we'll open the mic for comments for each of those. Let's try to limit the initial comments to 10 minutes each. Just so that everybody gets a chance to speak, let's keep our initial comments brief, and then we'll cycle through, and if there's still time remaining, we'll come up for additional comments based on what we've already heard. We'll try to get out of here since it's easy. So the 4 areas that I've broken these up into are the specific projects that were mandated in the VCI prescription. So there's a whole section titled Building Inconsistencies that outlined set up buckets of projects. I also took some liberty and I made an area called VCI related. So there's a spirit to VCI, right, about being welcoming, opening up some community, making good first impressions. So there's a couple that I fit under there. There's another for overdue maintenance and repairs. And then finally, improvements. So I get these maybe slightly bigger projects, but they're things that really go a long way. All the low-hanging fruit to make some high-value improvements to the building. So starting with the VCI mandated projects, these are the specific prescriptions that were written for building inconsistencies, and then one other which has an impact on capital. So the primary buckets were fixing the chimney. There's a masonry issue. Bricks are about to fall onto our roof. So the chimney's gotten into such a state of disrepair. There's also installation of a men's bathroom on the main floor. There's one bathroom right now on the main floor that is available for men to use, which can create a bottleneck, especially when there's events happening at church. If there's a wedding or something like that, then that creates quicker backup for a lot of people. A updating our wonderful fellowship hall. This space has a lot of potential, but like I've said, I think the last time it was updated was when I was probably about Leo's height, and I can still remember the floor that's underneath this carpet. And then a couple about signage. So currently our information about worship service is on a sandwich board that's out in the lawn next to our main sign. We need to do something to incorporate that information onto our main sign. Right now, nobody has any idea what time our worship services are unless they go to the website that's listed on the main sign. Also, an improvement for signage in the parking lot. I have a couple of photos. There's so many things around the church that we're here so frequently, we don't even recognize unless we really stop and take a moment to look at it and absorb it and think, what would I think if this was the first time that I saw that? So this is around improved signage directed to the parking lots, denoting which parking spaces are for what use, and then finally navigational signage. So we do an okay job of marking rooms in the building. Most of the rooms are marked in some way, shape, or form, although it's very consistent. But navigational signage is really weak. The number of evenings where I've been here for some type of event, and there's been a visitor, and I've been asked, where do I go to find the Discovery Room? Or where's the gym? Well, it's up on the second floor. So there's certainly some improvements that need to be made. And then finally, under the worship section, there was a line that says that we probably want to make considerations for audiovisual enhancements of worship. So it's really targeted towards the worship team. The worship team has told me that this is something that they want to do. So we're moving down that path. We can get a lot more use out of AV improvements in the sanctuary than just with worship. So I'll talk about some of those. But I know there's some comments and concerns, so it'd be great to hear some of those today. So I'll start going in order through the VCI mandates for building improvements. Here's some pictures of what our chimney looks like. As of about a week and a half ago, it has some decoration on it. So you can see that because of the way that the chimney was built, the corners don't actually have a way where the bricks overlap. So it's really quite weak once the mortar and the bricks starts to deteriorate. So this is why the prescription says fix it before it falls onto the roof. You can see that it is about to fall onto the roof. So this is the first project. There's many masonry projects we've kind of built on top of just doing this chimney repair, but this is the one that's really, really critical. So this was actually starting back mid-year last year. We started to get the ball rolling with this, get in some quotes. We've selected a contractor to do this work. As you can see, there's now some work going on outside. And because the chimney is in such a state of disrepair, it's not something that we can just fix in place. So we have two options. We can either take the top of the chimney off and cap it. You can see the two colors there. There's blue and there's yellow. There's already an architectural limestone bank that wraps the chimney right where those two lines are. So the first option is to remove the top and just cap it at that location, or to remove it and then rebuild it. So it's beyond the point where we can just fix it as it is. So the other thing is, if you look at the chimney in the last week and a half, I know everybody looks at the chimney as you walk in the front door. We've actually, the contractor came out midweek, last week previous, and they've wrapped it. So it's not something that they can get to right now on the project schedule, but at this point, at least it's contained. The bricks are not going to fall onto the chimney, or onto the roof. It's a project that they'll probably get to somewhere fall-ish, late fall. So the difference in cost between those two options was about 3x. And so trustees voted, what do we want to do? This is an architectural change to the building. And trustees said, you know, at this point, we've got so many other things that we really need to use capital towards. Let's remove it and cap it. And if the day comes where we've got the funding and we want to reapproach it, then the top can be rebuilt and restored to what it was previously. Okay, the next project in the VCI prescriptions is the addition of a men's bathroom in the main floor. Pretty straightforward. The location that we're looking to do that is right next to the existing unisex bathroom. We would take the space from the closet that's in the discovery room. But we don't necessarily know that space is where the men's bathroom is going to end up. We want to end up with a men's bathroom and an ADA compliant unisex bathroom. Currently, as configured, our unisex bathroom doesn't meet ADA. So whether that bathroom becomes a men's bathroom or we add an ADA compliant bathroom, either way, that's what we're going to try and end up with at the end of the project. The complications here are that space is right above the boiler room, and what makes this kind of a challenging project is our building is made out of concrete. So our walls, when you see the thickness of our walls, that is all concrete. So we have to cut a hole in the wall through the concrete. Every time we drive plumbing through the floor, we have to cut a hole through the concrete in the floor. And the boiler room is right below that space, so there's quite a bit of plumbing and ductwork already underneath that floor, which either needs to be relocated or taken out during construction and put back. So it's a fairly complicated project. In the Fellowship Hall refresh, I've broken this up into two phases. So the first is, let's make this a space where people actually want to be first. And there's some pretty straightforward things that we can do for that. So first, replacing our carpeting with all this wonderful spots and splotches. Repainting the walls, and then maybe doing some things with lighting, just cleaning up the space a little bit so it's some place where people want to be. And then the second phase is tailoring it towards the different groups that would really want to get some use out of it. So we can talk of maybe moving the casual service into this space, which would mean not having something like this simple pull-down screen, more of a robust audio-visual support. Also having more casual furniture rather than the stackable chairs, maybe some dividers to keep the space cozy for the size of the group that's using it. But then also things like youth group, or when we have dinners down here, make that space really usable to support those things. So we're talking maybe even having something like a beverage bar in the back, where we've got an ice maker that's easily available, a sink that's easily available, that you don't have to go into the kitchen to get to. So there's lots of different talk about what can we do to really enhance the space to make it more usable for the different functions. And then I kind of combine the three prescriptions about signage into one, just saying, hey, we really need to do some work about signage. Randy Hamstring has been helping us with signage. He's an expert on signage, so he's been helping us figure out what we really need to do doing an audit of our existing signage. Where do we have holes? And I think long term, we'd really like to roll out a consistent signage platform. Right now, there's, as I mentioned, room numbers and room names are marked in many different formats. It's not consistent. You don't know where to look. Sometimes you look on the door, you look above the door. Is it protruding out in the hallway? Is it flat on the wall? Okay. And like I said, there's really not much navigational sign. And then the parking lot marking. So I took a photo of an example of what our visitors might be greeted with when they pull into the parking lot. Okay? So we've got a metal post that's driven into the ground with a metal sign. It's bent, it's crooked, okay? And it's got very small text. Okay. I never even looked at the text that was on the sign before until I went up and had to see what it was. We also want to augment the service information onto the main sign, and there's a couple of challenges with that. Is code for the city of Grand Rapids limits sign square footage, and we're about a foot shy of code, believe it or not, with the size sign we have right now. So augmenting the existing sign, adding on to it, just something that adds space, isn't an option. The other thing is that our sign is internally lit. So if we were to modify the existing sign panels and add something with, say, changeable letters, it's going to change the way that it's backlit because there will be additional material on front of it. So we're working through what some of our options might be here. We'll probably either have to replace the panels or figure out some other way to work adding information without violating the code restriction for size. And then the navigational sign, this is just an example of something that Randy brought as maybe an option for signage inside. It's something that's it's style, and it also supports a changeable slip of paper inside. But frankly, if you see it, you don't even realize that there's a sheet of paper in there. But that would allow us to change the message, change room names. We actually do change the names of how we refer to certain rooms in the church somewhat frequently. But then also, we could have welcoming signs. If there's groups that come in and use the space for meetings, we can greet them with a special message that has their group name on it as well. So if the people who are coming to that meeting don't necessarily need to know, I need to go to the discovery room, I need to go to the room that my meeting is in. And then the last is sanctuary technology. And so this is spawned by the VCI requirement, or VCI suggestion, I'll call it, for having audiovisual enhancements to the sanctuary for worship. There's also more ways that we can leverage that technology. We've actually had groups come in and say, we'd like to find a meeting space within the church, and they take a look at the sanctuary and say, oh, but I need to play a video, or I've got some slides that I want to show as part of my meeting. And that immediately disqualifies us for hosting that meeting. And frankly, the use of the sanctuary is on our schedule of building use fees. That's our highest revenue generator. So also for community use, right? The same thing, meetings coming in, it's a great meeting space. But also fun things like the youth group movie night, or we've had kids movies recently where we use the discovery room and the TV in that space. It'd be great to have a nice big screen in the sanctuary. So our goal, my goal, is to do as much as we can to reduce the aesthetic impact on the sanctuary. We've discussed a couple of different ways, configurations that this could possibly be done to still support that goal. We do have a couple of quotes in hand, so we know what we're targeting in terms of cost for meetings. Okay, so I'll open up the floor for comments at this point. If you could, if you come up and you've got comments, state your name first so we can capture who it is that's asking the question. And then if we have the answer, we'll do our best here. If not, we'll document it and try and work it into our considerations for the project.
Not everyone all at once.
Yeah, so first the mic so that everybody can hear. We're also videotaping this so that we can put it up on YouTube. And anybody who's not able to make it to one of the town halls can still see the material and the questions that are being asked.
I just have a real quick mechanical question. If you're going to take the top off the chimney, does that create a mechanical issue for the boiler operation?
Yep, so the one thing that the chimney is actually in use for is the boiler. And no, it doesn't create an issue. So it's still... No, we're not very cold, and it satisfies code as well. We still have the distance between the roof line and the chimney that's required by code.
I was house chairman for about 15 years or so, kind of knowledgeable on a lot of the workings of the financing and special capital improvements. I always said that it takes about $50,000 to $75,000 a year in capital expenses to maintain this building. And of course, that's not part of the budget. So it's been over the years, about every 10 years or so, we've had to have a capital campaign to justify it. And I think that this has been 12 years now since we've had our last capital campaign. The last one involved the slate roof and some other things that were involved. This church, as a lot of us pretty well know, the building is actually bigger than what the size of the congregation can justify at this time. And through the VCI program, we hope to grow the church and to justify that. There was some talk in some of our meetings about possibly selling the church and moving to a smaller facility. And of course, I don't think there are many people that would want that. It kind of, we all love this church building. So the about 40 to 45% of these 500,000 really goes to the cut pointing, what we call the brick and the outside repairs. The future of this church is in the young people, and the way of worshiping is changing. And it's hoped that make this fellowship hall a place where they will be comfortable. The atmosphere of worship for these young people will change. Almost probably a lounge effect, maybe a coffee bar, whatever, that will be appealing and attracting to the young people. So personally, Vicki and I more or less made a decision already on what we're going to do. Of course, as he has just said, that the amount requested is about the same amount that if everyone gave double of what they're contributing every year to the church, that's what it would equal. We're going to do a little bit more because at this point in our life we feel we can do that. Plus the fact that there are people here in the church that just are giving to their very maximum abilities. So, but our pledge will be given over a 3-year period, so that will help us raise the capital funds a little bit more. And one last thing, for those that are going to go home and seriously weigh this proposition, it's time to also look at the future as far as endowment. If you don't have Trinity in your will, in your financial planning in your will, and you have the cash flow now, but you might be able to leave some from the church when you're gone. If we could build our endowment fund to say $1 million, which is not too impractical. We are about 30% of the way there right now. The interest from this endowment fund every year would cover these capital funds that we don't have the yearly income to cover in the future. So that's part of the dream of the endowment fund committee, is to build that over the years.
Thanks, Lynn. Let's speak to at least one thing. So as Lynn mentioned, the masonry has gotten to this point because we don't really support financially doing annual maintenance and annual improvements on the building. Part of the DCI facilities team that's been put together, part of the charter is to develop more of an annual maintenance plan and cadence, so that we don't get in a situation where we've got a massive masonry project. I just found some numbers out with our contractor who's doing the masonry work, and if we just set aside, say, $5,000–10,000 a year for tuck pointing, for doing frequent maintenance, then we wouldn't get into the situation where we've got a portion of the building that needs to be removed, or that we need to do a large project to fix a leak because the masonry mortar's gotten so bad. So that's a part of this process as well, is figuring out what we need to do on an annual basis so we don't get into a situation like this.
Couple of things. First of all, do you have any general idea of how much it would cost with the screens and the sanctuary, that kind of thing? Just be interested in knowing what that generally would be. The second thing is, this of course is the project that's needed for the facilities. There's some cost to ECI for some additional programming. Are we going to get a report before we actually do this campaign of how much that's going to cost too for a youth director, or what small group director, or, well, 2 or 3 other things that they suggested. And that's going to need a large increase, I would take it, in the regular budget, unless it's a part of something like this. And so just wondering, are we going to get a report that would indicate how much additional cost it's going to take to fulfill the other requirements?
Yep, so we've got 2 quotes in hand for the screens in the sanctuary. The one that the contractor that we want to work with the most is about $40,000. And what that covers is that configuration that's in that quote is for 2 screens at the front of the sanctuary that would be up in the upper corners of the sanctuary. So think about up against the organ chambers on each side. The thought is we still have some wood that's left over when the balcony was removed, so we can box those in and match the wood with the rest. So when they're not in use, they would be curled up inside those boxes. Like if you walked into the sanctuary and you didn't know the configuration of the sanctuary, you probably didn't notice that there was any difference. And then also, so that the choir has visibility to screens, and so that whoever's speaking on stage has visibility to the screens. There would be 3 flat screens that would be put on the front of the balcony, facing back towards everybody else. So that number includes the cost of those screens, installation, all the cabling, and everything that would be needed to support those. So that's that configuration. The configuration for me is still an open discussion. With what I do, I go to a lot of conferences. I see different stage configurations when speakers are talking. My concern with having 2 screens is that it's a bit distracting from the person who's actually speaking. They'll be up and to the sides. So while somebody is on stage speaking to the message, everybody in the congregation is going to be up and to the left or up and to the right, and not necessarily towards the person who's speaking. I'd like to explore something that is kind of a screen that comes down from that can be completely hidden when not in use behind the bulkhead. It's splits the stage from the choir line, and then drops down and sits not too high above the choir. So that would be one central focal point, and we would all be looking close to whoever it is that's delivering the message. So there's some concerns there too, I'm sure, with covering up symbols in the church that the screen is placed in. But it all comes down to how the screen is going to be used during worship. Is it going to be visible in the whole worship service? Is it just going to come down when there's AV that would be supplemented based on the message? I don't think any of that's been decided yet. That's all something for the worship committee to decide. From a trustees and facilities team perspective, it's our job to support that in terms of the infrastructure change. And then as far as supporting the other things in the prescriptions that require funding, I'll leave that to the finance committee to address if they want. I think I can say from what I've seen, we're trying to fit that inside of the framework of the budget that we already have in place.
Committee chair and Health Committee. One of my questions is, are we only doing BCI stuff, or are we pick up some other projects too along the way that this time is allocated for that too, from the gym, parking lots, the other things that are not really out there thought about, whatever.
So that's coming. So this first section was just about the DCI related ones, and I have 3 more sections of projects coming here. I will speak to the boiler quickly. The boiler is not included in any of these projects. So we've had a mechanical contractor come in within the last couple of weeks, and his guidance is that there's nothing with the boiler that if it broke right now could be fixed. And on an ongoing basis. So the considerations right now for boiler replacement are the cost of annual operation. So if we were to replace with a newer system, then we could probably cut the cost by about a third of what it currently takes in natural gas to run a boiler. It's an old type of system that isn't very efficient, whereas a new type of system that just runs on hot water, would be much more efficient. And then the other part of why we would want to replace the boiler is just for the control of how well it heats different parts of the building. Anybody who's in the office or in the discovery room knows how smoking hot it gets during the winter. It's because that space is right above the boiler. The way that our current boiler system works is it's a steam boiler, and it cycles. So it creates steam flows through one pipe up to all the different parts of the building, gives off its heat, condenses, and then comes back to the system through the same pipe as water. So it's a system that cycles. That's the reason why the furthest part, or the rooms that are furthest away from the boiler, are the most difficult to heat. The rooms that are closest get so hot. So if we were to change, all the new systems run on hot water, which means that there's hot water that cycles out and cycles back. So replacing the boiler itself is not that big of an issue, aside from the fact of getting the old one out of here and getting the new one into the boiler. Where the really difficult challenge there is the infrastructure throughout the building. So all of our radiators are made for this steam heat, which is one pipe going out to the radiator and coming back. So there's no way to cycle water back and forth. So it'd be a pretty big infrastructure project to do it. So based upon the guidance that we can keep our current boiler in operation, I suppose the other consideration is the annual spin up, the annual shutdown, and cleaning is not a fun chore. So Andy does that for us now most of the time. So those would be the three considerations. But given the other capital requirements that we've got on the table right now, we just said it probably makes sense to table that. Let's wait and see if we can tackle that once we get these requirements and high value projects out of the way.
I'm glad that the issue about heating and the boiler came up. Because based on our experience in the Banking Center, which is a very old building as well, it was converted from a steam heating system to a hot water system. And we were able to do it using the same piping that we had. And just recently we had the issue of the chimney, and we decided to use a high efficiency boiler that eliminated the use of the chimney. And so we saved a lot of money by not having to fix the chimney and just top it off and use high efficiency boiler that will save on operating costs going forward, because the cost of fuel use would be lesser. So I don't know if that situation will entirely apply here, but I just thought I look into it.
Yeah, so I've actually looked into could the cost of natural gas savings per year pay for over the long term the cost of the boiler. And the company that we have do all of the servicing on our boiler says that's probably feasible. So over 20, 30 years, you could probably use the savings of natural gas to fund financing a new boiler. But again, the cost is in redoing the infrastructure for all of the rest of the church. So I'd be interested to hear how they accomplish that. Maybe there's something that the mechanical contractors that in don't know. But yeah, the natural gas is a pretty significant portion of our annual budget. So if we can cut that down to about a third of what it is now, but it is significant. Anybody else on the VCI prescriptions? All right. So I took some liberties with what I threw into this bucket, but I think you'll see why for VCI related projects. So really the thought here is around making first impressions and ties into the community. So the first here is some type of messaging screens. This is actually not that expensive of a project. But this would be about putting flat screens somewhere near the entryways, maybe one near the office, for informational purposes. So right now, those of you who come on meeting night or for evening activities know what we do to let people know where they're supposed to go. It's a whiteboard that the office staff writes on and puts outside the office every day. So it'd be a lot more efficient to have that information at all of the entryways where people come into the building, and a lot easier to change as well and to keep running and support. So other things that could go on there: welcoming, inspirational messages, welcome visitors, welcome training, coffee times in this room, that type of thing. So people walk in so that they know where they're supposed to go. That would save on having our greeters have to know all of the details about everything that's going on at the church to help direct traffic. We also have calendars, information about events that are coming up. One thing that I've noticed is our community connection in church has gotten smaller over the years. And the amount of other church information that's included in community connection is smaller. So unless you read the newsletter and get emails, sometimes it's things that you don't even know are going on. So this would be a place to put that. And then also, it's a potential opportunity to reduce some of the bulletin boards that we have around the church. I walk into other churches, and there isn't nearly the amount of bulletin boards and clutter on the walls in certain locations. And so if we could include some of those photos, information about those events, and pictures of the church community, that's another place where we could do it, potentially reduce some of those bulletin boards. And then the other thing, this is the big one for me, is our coat bags. I can remember coming to church when I was little. We used to search for what hanger isn't attached so that I could hang my own coat. And if you put, so these racks have been up there for 50, 60, 70 years. They are really, really old. The message when somebody walks in and sees the hangers that are attached, don't steal our hangers. The other thing is, if you think about, say, a young family coming for the first time, if they've got a baby, they've got a diaper bag, and they've got coffee mugs, they walk in and we don't have a place for them to put that stuff while they hang up their coat. So the floor is the option. The shelves that are a part of these racks are made for hats. And a whole lot of people that come to church wearing hats anymore that need a small shelf to put. So this is a pretty easy, quick hit project. You can do really quickly, and the cost isn't really that high. Okay, so just two in that space. So I'll open up for questions. Yep. Yeah, so the question is, are we talking electronic screens or what type of screens? So yes, just think of a smaller flat panel TV. Okay. So then on to overdue maintenance and repairs. So first, building on the chimney project are additional masonry repairs. So the masonry in the building has gotten into a pretty bad state of disrepair. So we're going to tackle some of the areas that really need attention here in the short term. I'll talk about the northwest corner first. So you may have seen the scaffolding that was put up in the last week or two. Work is already underway using the funds that have already been associated to the capital campaign. Around February or March, Brad Shopke and I got an email from Betsy that it was a storm that came through, and she said, we got really, really bad leak. So we got here, and the 55-gallon trash container had been put under the leak, and within a period of about an hour, it was about 2/3 of the way full. So in the northwest stairwell at the back of the sanctuary, over there, there's you see a picture when I get to classroom repairs later of the damage that was done by it. But basically, there was a stream of water just running through the ceiling, just a stream, and it's from masonry, the mortar deterioration. So you can see a picture on the lower left there. The good news is it only leaks when the rain comes out of the northwest. So that's again, that's one that's gotten to the point where it's so bad that it needs to be torn apart and put back together. It's not something that can be just fixed in place. So that project is underway. The other thing that we're going to tackle here in the short term are the sanctuary buttresses. So an example of what we're seeing is the two pictures on the left there. This again goes to issues getting worse by not doing an annual upkeep. The thought in the first part of this project is an exploration to figure out if this really is the case. The thought is that there's some type of a metal, iron, or steel substructure that supports the sanctuary ceiling. We know that there is iron up in the attic above the sanctuary, so it's about whether or not that carries down and then load bear to the ground. The thought is that there's that steel substructure that is wrapped with the masonry buttresses. And so what the thing is happening is that water, because the mortar has been deteriorated and not tuck pointed, water's getting in, rusting out that steel, and then the steel expands when it rusts. It's got nowhere to go because it's wrapped in bricks, and so it's popping the masonry around it as it expands. So it's makes it worse on its own. Right? The more water gets in, the worse it gets, and the water gets in, the worse it gets. So the first part of the project is to do some exploration, but fixing this is going to entail removing the brick ceiling and addressing whatever issues there are with that substructure, that metal substructure, and then rebuilding the brick around it. It sounds really pricey. All of us were pretty surprised at how reasonable this company could do it. So it's going to be about $10,000 or $15,000 per budget. So that's where a big part of the number comes from the capital campaign. There's probably somewhere between 8 and 10 of these buttresses that need to be done. The others could probably be fixed in place, but they've gotten to the point where they're in this type of a condition. And then finally, on the south side, there are a few smaller spots that need some attention. One of which is the keystone, or the entryway. So you might be able to see in that picture there, the keystone or the entry is actually shifted down. And it's been filled in on top of, and polished down, and filled in on top of. So part of that project is to support the archway, remove the keystone, and reset it where it's supposed to go. And then there's also a lot of areas on the south side that need some tuck pointing. They've gotten to the point where the noise is really bad shape. Another point of overdue maintenance are the tile stairways. There's quite a few, both at the south entrance as well as the main entrance, where you can see in the picture the token on the stairs is starting to peel away. So as the mortar and the tile deteriorates, it turns basically into kind of sand or dirt. It settles down, and then as more and more settles, it pushes itself further and further away as it gets walked on. So there's a few stairs on the main entrance. There's most of the stairway at the south entrance. Those all need to be fixed. And then this is one where probably not many people see the plaster in the organ chambers because of the condition of the roof years ago and the masonry currently. There's been quite a bit of water damage in the organ chamber. So that picture in the upper left are some plaster repairs that have already been done. And then you can see the picture in the middle of what the floor of the organ chambers look like right now. So plaster dust is settled on the floor. Plaster dust is also settled in our organ. It's in the organ pipes. And so throughout the church, there's not just in the organ chambers, but there's other spots too that need some work for plastic repair from water leaks and from damage. The upper right there is just outside the junior high room. The lower right there is where we've got that leak in the northwest corner. And there's other spots around the building too. Up in the sanctuary, there's a couple of spots in there where the buttresses are, both on the balcony flanks, as well as some up on the ceiling. And even down here, in the Fellowship Hall, if you take a look around, there's some spots where there's been water damage that's been repaired. One of them, right, is the panel that's covering the access hole, where we have to get up and fix a leak years ago. But this was the solution. It's about to back up. All right, and then another project which is substantial are some organ repairs. So again, plaster damage, part of the organ repairs are to glue the pipes, get the plaster out. So in 2013, there was a committee that was put together to investigate both repairs and improvements to the organ. In a pretty extensive report that's, if you care about the organ, it's an interesting report to read. I can get you a copy, but it details the history of the organ, when it was put in, what the original cost was, what the configuration was. So it was installed in 77, I think, 77 or 78, when Lee Athol was the director. One of the reasons why I mentioned the time frame is because part of the fixes that need to be done are because of the changing state of metallurgy at the time, believe it or not. So the pipes are made out of zinc. At the time, we were learning how to take out some of the impurities when we manufacture zinc. And the problem is some of those impurities gave strength to the pipes. So at the time, they hadn't updated their support mechanisms, how they built the structure to support the organ. And so over time, the softer pipes have started to bend. And actually, if you take a look, you might not be able to see from far away, but the third pipe in, I'll show you, there should be a pipe right now.
All of these should be in belt.
Some of these pipes have gotten so bad they're actually starting to shape like a C. So part of this this project as well is to take the pipes, straighten them, and build an adequate structure to hold them in place. It's also been 40 years since the organ has really serviced well, so that's another reason why it's probably time. Right now, the facilities team and the trustees are saying that the right project is to do the repairs, get things repaired and cleaned up, but the enhancements, we're going to hold off on those for now. Okay. Another project that's long overdue is work on the parking lots. Frankly, the parking lots have gotten so bad that they're beyond the point where we can, again, just repair them in place with sealer or something along those lines. We're at the point where we probably need to remove the parking lot and install something new. It's also, if we take out the parking lot, it's an opportunity to address some of the drainage issues. So, you know, if you've tried to walk through the parking lot in the winter, sometimes it's an ice rink. And so the main drain, this would be an opportunity to fix some of that. And just some other, these smaller projects, paint can be used around the building. A few of the pictures that I've got here are the hallway over by the junior high room there on the lower left, the gym on the upper right. There's also some water damage in the gym that should be addressed. The leaks seem to all be fixed, but what was left of the leaks is not. Then also the community ministries room, which is the old chapel down the hall by the back stairway, would be a wonderful space to use, but nobody wants to be in there because it really stinks. The thought is that when it was redone, that the carpeting glue didn't cure correctly. So there's been a few different theories. That's the latest of what would need to be done to address that issue. Okay. Open up for projects.
No, does the 500,000 take care of all of this? And then who decides on priorities?
So, in terms of priorities at this point, you can more or less take a priority from high to low as I walked through these. The VCI related ones are obviously the highest priority. We've signed up for those. We are compelled to do those because we said we're going to get out of restrictions. That was part of the deal. All of the projects are covered under the 500,000 according to our best guesses at this point. These types of projects, you never know what you're going to get into until you really start pulling that down, especially something like the base grade. But right now we're basing it on the best guesses that we can get from everybody, whether it be contractors that we brought in for estimates. All of the big ticket items on here, we have estimates in here from contractors. The smaller things like paint or replacing the carpet or some of the other our best guesses from the facilities team and trustees. And all of us have a pretty good handle on construction and what some of these things are doing. In terms of approach from a detail level of priorities, I think we're all saying these are all things that we need to get done. So what's on this list are the priorities versus the things that are on the list. The tough part's going to come when we find out where we fall with the capital campaign. And we don't want to decide as a core team without input from everybody else, which is what this is for, what the priorities of some of these other items should be. So the comments that we hear, the comments that we hear from the teams, the comments that we hear as individuals are all going to weigh into how we prioritize the individual projects if we don't meet the goal for capital. All right, on the home stretch. So this is just some other general improvements, things that we've heard as teams requested by individuals or things that are on the table for a while. Fellowship Hall kitchen upgrades. It's been a while since there was any type of work done in there. The cabinets, the two biggest things here would be replacing the cabinets with something that's a little bit more modern and not falling apart at the base there, as you can see. And then also the range hood is temperamental. There's been times where one day you turn it on and it doesn't start up, the next day you turn it on and it does. That happens on a day when we're supposed to have a dinner in the kitchen. That's going to be an issue. So the goal would be to get that either replaced or in a state of repair where it's very reliable. And then also just miscellaneous repairs here and there within the kitchen as well. Another one that's on improvements is carbon lighting. So the reason this makes the list is during a house cleaning night, say 4 or 5 months ago, we went through and we replaced every single light bulb that was burned out in the parking lot. Every light bulb came out of its fixture, was wiped down so that it was clean, it was still working. If you go in there today, you can see that we're down about 20 or 30% of the lights again already. And fluorescent lights, as reliable as they are, when you've got about 60 or 80 of them in a space, you're going to end up with some that go quickly after you've gone through and replaced some. The other thing is around energy efficiency. And so fluorescent lights are reasonably energy efficient, especially over something like incandescence. But the way that the circuit is wired in the parlor right now, we don't have any way that we can manage the lighting according to a proximity sensor. So we can't say if nobody's been in the parlor for 10 minutes, turn off the lights until somebody walks back in and turn the lights back on. It's just the way that the circuit was wired. So what we want to do is replace that with LED and put in that type of control. So LED would be a little bit more efficient, save on the energy bill, and it also allows to have control to save on energy costs as well. So this is one that will probably pay for itself over the course of a few years. And then another that sort of goes hand in hand with parking lot replacement, but would be, say, put it in the bucket for improvements, would be parking lot lighting. The parking lot, the main parking lot has lights, has two. But they don't illuminate the entire parking lot. The part of the main parking lot that's entrance off of Lake Drive really stays pretty dark at night, which not only is for convenience, but it's also a safety concern. Especially as not just the community tie-in with allowing community groups to use the building, we also have a responsibility to the community for some of these external aesthetic repairs and improvements, as well as making sure that our property is safe as a member of the community. And another is the downstairs hallways. So again, it's an area. Geez, when's the last time any work was done down here to make it a better space? Even if we upgrade the fellowship hall, you still have to walk through 40, 50-year-old tile on the floor and paneling in the hallways to get to the space. So if we have groups that come in and want to use the sanctuary as for their event, and they use fellowship halls as reception space, we still have to walk through our hallways to get. So quick hit would be floor and the walls, whether it be paint or finding out what's behind the paneling and trying to do something like that. But then also, maybe turning that space that's at the base of the main stairway into a den area, some seats, some furniture, some lighting, and tables, couches, chairs, something like that. Just a space where, if you go to a wedding reception, right, there's always that area where everybody congregates to talk, that's away from everything else that's going on. That would be a great place to have that close to that. And then the second floor bathroom. So aside from the kids' bathroom, there really is only one bathroom on the second floor for anybody who's up there for meeting spaces or for service in the second in the balcony. Right now, that bathroom up there has two stalls with a lock on the door, so nobody else can come in when you're using the bathroom. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's just been that long since any work was done in there to improve it. So I think the goal here would be to make just a unisex second floor bathroom as well. So it's a decent space to support the groups that use the second floor. And that's it for projects. So open mic to any of the projects that I just went over, plus just any thoughts everybody has in general about the capital campaign or any of the other projects.
I'm Kay Snyder and I'm the treasurer. I just wanted to point out that there's some handouts up here. There are some tax advantages to certain kinds of gifts that you give appreciated capital stock or other appreciated property. And those handouts kind of explain what those tax advantages are. If you happen to be over 70 and a half and required to take distributions from an IRA, there are also tax advantages to donating those directly to the church, and there are some handouts there about that as well. There's a Wall Street Journal article and a Motley Crue article. And then there's a third sheet which gives you information if you do want to do those things. You can contact Trinity's investment advisor directly with your broker to make the transfer. So it's really simple for you. All you do is call your broker, give them this information, and they can contact ours, and it's a simple process. One other thing I wanted to mention, Jeff went through a lot of groups that use the church. A lot of them either make donations or there is a piece that go for some of their usage, so they can help cover some of our costs with custodial care and things like that. So it's not all just a cost additional to Trinity. There is, they do help.
Yeah, I'll speak to that quickly. So one of the projects that the trustees took on for the first half of the year was getting our, updating our building use policy. So both from a paperwork standpoint, making sure that we have the right process and policy in place, but then also from the fee schedule and handling the income, support from the finance committee about making sure that trustees have access to some of the funding from building use. It's because not only is there just operational costs associated with having roofs in the building, it's like keeping toilet paper and paper towel in bathrooms, there's also wear and tear on the building, just the more the building is used. So it's important also that trustees has access to some of that income as well. So that's in place now. So in the future, as the building gets used more and more, there will be more capital for this type of upkeep as well.
Randy Hamstring. Jeff, I noticed that you're proposing to use a digital sign. I love that. I love the idea of reducing the amount of travel around with all the police posters and that's going on. Think about utilizing that also as part of the wayfinding system. Because you could easily use that as a record. Display maps of the church, so people coming in, know where the nursery is, the bathrooms are, things of that nature. So that could have a dual purpose.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Randy. The other thing is, things are so much more flexible when we got electronics. So there's even a point where we could schedule different messages to be on the screen at different times. So at 5 o'clock, whatever's going on in the day goes away, or the screens turn on at 5. And then there could be navigational information specific to the groups that are going to be using the church now. So welcome group, here's the room you're in, and here's a map to get to that room. Thanks.
Vicki Francis, when the current sign was put in, there was a gift, a memorial gift, and it was my understanding they wanted electronic. And the local neighborhood association, particularly one or two people wanted it, squashed it. So we run into the same problem.
Yep, so currently for the main sign, for the main exterior sign, we're not looking at doing any type of digital on the main sign. What we would love to be able to do is keep the existing sign in place and have the least resistance from a cost standpoint, but from an execution standpoint. It's going to be to just add something with changeable information for when the worship time is up. When we talk about entrance, when we talk about digital screens and TVs, we're really talking about inside the church at the entrances. So as you walk in the door, here's a welcome message, here's a scripture message, here's some information about events going on. So that would all be inside the building.
Ellie Petty. In the scheme of things, this may seem really minor. I'm feeling overwhelmed with what needs to be done here, and I'm really impressed with the job you've done for us. But if we're looking at using the fellowship hall for more and more activities, I didn't see the women's bathroom on this level mentioned, but like the community ministries room, it smells really funky and would definitely not make a good impression.
Steve Murray. I'm just wondering what the time frame for all this is, Jeff. Do we need to raise 150,000 more within the next year, and then do we have a couple more years after that to raise the rest?
So part of the capital drive is potentially giving over time. So as far as the projects, I think we're going to try and do all of this within a 2 or 3 year period, kind of aligning with what we're thinking in terms of is giving over time. So we'll try to align doing the projects as we have come. We're not going to get out ahead of ourselves. But it's probably about the pace that we're going to be able to manage doing these projects as well. So we'll tackle the ones first that, especially the overdue maintenance, where probably just going to get worse if we don't do those. And then the rollout of everything else, I think, will be a conversation within the building, within the facilities team, within trustees. Just figure out what projects everybody is ready to step up and tackle and manage internally. But that's the overall thought process. So all of the projects within a 2 or 3 year time.
Judy Connor, and I was on trustees for 3 years, and I'm glad to see them moving forward, because we talked about it for 3 years. Sorry.
I'd like to see the trustees and house committee also look at the large windows in the sanctuary. About 30 years ago, we put clear plexiglass over the outsides of the window. We went to plexiglass now is now opaque, and it was caulked in, and I would imagine a good share of that caulk is gone, literally leaving those windows without much environmental or heat protection. So somebody ought to look at that. Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, that's it for today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the input.